Thank you and welcome to the show this morning. The topic this morning is the American immigration policy at the 21st century. And of course, we have with us to talk about the American immigration policy at the 21st century, Dr. McDonald from Tennessee State University in the Department of Political Science, History, and Geography. And of course, Dr. McDonald, let me welcome you to the show this morning.
Well, thank you, Dr. Haney. It's good to be here.
And to tell you how delighted we are to have you here, and especially to talk about what I consider to be a very, very timely topic, the American immigration policy. And indeed, in a real sense, it's a policy that we rarely reflect upon, but we've had many opportunities over the last many weeks to think about what it means to be an immigrant in the United States. And so before we get into the American immigration policy at the 21st century, Dr. McDonald, let's see if we can have you to give us some information about your background, your education, and some of the things that were important in terms of eventually leading you to Tennessee State University. In a real sense, some of the things that you've talked about, because we've had you on a number of occasions, and you really ought not to be an unfamiliar face with many members of our audience. But nevertheless, let's talk about it from that perspective.
Okay. Well, again, Dr. Haney, thanks for having me on your show. In terms of my personal background, I was born in Buffalo, New York, grew up in Huntsville, Alabama, where I finished high school, and I went to undergraduate school at MTSU in Murfreesboro. My senior year as SGA president, and then from there I went on to graduate school at Southern Illinois University in Carbondale, and where I got my master's in public administration, public policy. And during graduate school, I interned with the Illinois General Assembly and had a fellowship in the office of the governor, James R. Thompson, who also was one of the members of the 9/11 Commission. When I finished graduate school, I went to law school on a Thurgood Marshall Clio Fellowship, and finished at John Marshall Law School in 1987 and relocated back here to Nashville. And for about 12 years, I served as the Administrative Elections for Nashville-Davidson County. And then after that period of time, I've had the opportunity to serve as a member of the faculty at Tennessee State University as an assistant professor of political science.
Very good. You know, Dr. McDonald, what we'd like to do today, as we indicated, is to talk about the American immigration policy at the 21st century. But let's have you to react to a statement that we hear so often, that in the United States that we are all immigrants one way or the other, that this is a, quote, country of immigrants. Let's talk about it from that perspective.
Well, when we think about the United States of America, at least most people think about it in the context of as a melting pot. You have individuals who've come from every continent on the planet. And in terms of just the very founding fathers, the pilgrims themselves, of course, were not native, so to speak, of what we now know as the United States. American Indians and the Eskimos were in fact, the original Americans, to the extent that we had individuals who were on this land, who worked the land, who had the land. And so the majority of the individuals who have been Americans really have dual citizenship to some degree, because they arrived here from other countries, having crossed the seas, either the Atlantic Ocean or the Pacific Ocean. And for example, even African Americans, I mean, to the extent that they were slaves, enslaved, they still were not considered to be citizens. In fact, I think I mentioned to you that African Americans are the only people who were created by Constitution, according to the 13th and the 14th Amendment. And so if you look at the United States and break it down by culture, it doesn't matter if you're talking about Asia, if you're talking about Europe, if you're talking about the Pacific Rim, if you're talking about Africa, if you're talking about Australia, it doesn't matter. All of those continents are represented here in terms of Americans who claim to have roots to those different continents. And so we are a nation of immigrants.
Very good. And of course, in a real sense, and I think as we make preparations for the first commercial break, what we'd like to do when we come back during the second segment is to deal with some of the phases of the immigration policy in the United States, which is to say that after the establishment of the country, where did these people come from, and how did they come, and where did they, what groups did they represent, and et cetera. Because I think that now, and I think that you can even hear this as I try to stretch this before we have this first commercial break, but even when you listen to the more recent discussions dealing with immigration, you feel that there are a large number of folks saying that these folks ought to what? Go back to where they came from and et cetera. But the truth is, as you've already indicated, that all of us, for the most part, with the exception of very, very few Americans, came from somewhere else. And of course, when we come back, we want you to deal with that. And we'll be back with our audience following this very, very short commercial break. American immigration policy.